right? And so just like the idea that the Grand Canyon wasn't built in a day, and slowly but surely it made, this huge crevice in the ground. Just like that, it was slowly but surely 1%, moving through that consistency, wearing down resistance, right? That persistence of let me try. I'm going to make it different. I'm going to do a 1% improvement. And slowly but surely, profound change happened.
Hello and welcome to the And Both podcast. Here we are going to hear from moms and those in motherhood that are doing the thing that works for them. They are honoring themselves alongside the all-encompassing role and level of expectation that is motherhood. And we are going to hear from as many different people as possible in their own experience. So you can find people to relate to. You can hear stories that will make you laugh, make you cry, all of the above, and that we will come together as a community to support one another in a way that is holistic and honoring of the woman and the mother as a whole. Hello and welcome back to the And Both podcast. I am here with Jenna Hermans today. We are going to hear all about Jenna. And first of all, I wanted to start by saying hello and welcome. Thank you for coming on. It's lovely to meet you.
Thank you, Ashley. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Yes. And I also, it's one of those things where like you have 4 children and I have 4 children and we are busy people. So I don't normally sound like this. But I was like, if we can find a time for you and I to get together to record a podcast and I sound like I have 4 children in November, then here it is. So this is not my normal voice, but I just want to put it out there because there's been a few episodes where I didn't know. It's just one of those things. Like people probably don't care, but like, let's just put it out there anyway. So
is it your tired end of year voice, end of day?
It's my, I think my kids, like, they're really good at sharing the colds with each other. Like that's their jam. They're like, I've got something that I need to share with everybody. And so that comes on. But as I digress. So first of all, what I would love is for you to tell everybody all about you, all about this wonderful book that you have written and all of the lovely things that you do.
Thank you. So I am the co-founder and COO of a transformation agency called Be Courageous. My husband and I started this business 6.5 years ago. And during that time, I published a book, which came out this past May, called Chaos to Calm: 5 Ways Busy Parents Can Break Free from Overwhelm. And I'm also a high performance coach, like you said, mom of 4, and do, all the things that a working full-time homemaker, full-time mom, full-time job person, author, coach, operations and finance, full-time of all the things. So that is life in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm. That's a busy situation to be in. How does that work? Here's my question that I always like. So my husband owns his own company and I have my own company. We would not do well. We have worked together in the past on other things. How does that work?
We started working together when we were dating, and it was on a micro scale. We did some project engagement together and realized, wow, we can compartmentalize the various types of relationships that we have that encompass our partnership. And it worked really well. Our ways of communicating with each other and knowing where each other's superpowers are and strengths and weaknesses, not stepping on each other's toes and being able to lean on each other versus, fighting for the same, airspace. Yeah. So when we decided to start our own business, we knew that this would work well for us because we've done this in more micro ways before, and we have a lot of really effective communication tools in both of our toolboxes. We're both coaches and come from backgrounds of extreme personal development and business backgrounds as well. So we knew that with our personalities and also with our different levels of expertise, that we would be able to complement each other well in this business space.
I love it. I was listening to Layla Hormozi's podcast I love her. She's just like very like cut and dry, but she and her husband have built like these incredible businesses together. And she's like said the same thing. She was like, no, like work is work and home is home. And like we are able to do that. So it works. But I feel like that's not a common thing for people to be like, the dishwasher, but also this meeting. You know what I mean? Like you really
Yeah.
you've got to make some big boundaries, some big barriers there.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I think the hardest part is when, you're having pillow talk and you're like, can we talk about a client for a second? And there's times where I'm like, nope, absolutely not. Or he'll turn around and say, nope, that we are not bringing that in here right now. Nope. Boundaries.
It is dark outside. I am not working in the dark. Thank you very much. All right. So your background, I'm fascinated by because I read your About Me thing, and so you have a background in psychology, organizational management, and HR. I really feel like that is like the professional credentialing of a parent. So you've done like all of these things, and then you're like, oh, now I have 4 kids. Like, I don't know what else you could possibly put in there that would make it more like carry over from that into life. So tell me about that.
Well, I have one thing to add, which adds to my resume that made me parent ready. And that is that I ran a preschool for 5 years as well.
Oh my God. So not only do you have like all of the education, you actually have all the supplies to like make it happen.
Like I can navigate that zoo. I can navigate a zoo at home too. Sure thing.
Yeah. Sure. Whatever. Grown-up zoo, kids zoo, all the zoos. Just come on over to my house. That's a very windy road in preschool to like high performance.
Yeah, it kind of all happened serendipitously. I wouldn't say that it was intentional coming out of college with a psychology degree. I thought, how can I be the best parent that I could be as a 21-year-old, right? That was definitely not in my headspace, but I come from a headspace of curiosity, right? I've always been deeply curious about humans and about this human existence, how the mind works, how we navigate, the species navigates our environment. And so it was kind of natural that I'd end up in environments where they are human centric, like education, like HR, the human side of business with my organizational management degree instead of going a traditional MBA route, because I wanted to understand and get more tools around how can I support humans in business versus, strategy and all those other really cool things that other people do really well. Yes. So that was kind of the thread throughout it all, was the idea of how can it to nurture my curious nature of human beings in all their various states.
I love that. I just love that it doesn't have like, it doesn't have like a boundary to it in terms of like it is that central theme, but you're like, preschool. All right, let's give this a shot. Oh, let's do HR, like whatever. Like you did the whole lifespan. Like I always joke that OT school is like how to be a mommy, because there's so much, we talk about like so much development and so many pieces of that. But like this, like you made steps. You made steps along the way to like fill in the blanks. Like no wonder. So how old are your kids?
They are currently 7, 13, 15, and 16.
Oh, teenagers. I'm scared of teenagers.
Yeah. You should be. They're great. They're great. Don't worry.
I think it's going to be great. My oldest is 10, so I think it's going to be great. I just feel like it's like that roller coaster ride. Like it's the ride up the roller coaster that's the worst part, because like once it's going, you're like, all right, I guess we're like going, right? Like we're hanging on, we're all trying not to fall out the car as we're spinning and all of that, but like it's that like ticking up. I think that maybe that's where I'm at, but teenagers is busy. That's a busy house.
It is. Yeah, it's a busy house. And, I was talking to someone the other day who has a bunch of littles. I think they have 3 kids, 7, 5, and 2. And they said, does it get easier? And I said, no, but it gets different. right? It just gets different. The things that were hard when the kids are younger are not things that are hard anymore. So sure, that part gets easier, but then there's new, different challenges that arise, and navigating those keeps you on your toes as a parent, right? As with the idea of, as they develop and change and mature, that we do as well. And we have new boundaries and new things that we're considering as they have new things that they're considering, right? So the job doesn't get easier. It gets more complicated.
Yeah, that's the like I always say, like, yesterday was so easy. It doesn't matter what happened yesterday, but like you made it to the other side of the day. And even if it was the worst day ever, you're still here. And the idea of like, yeah, like it's just a different hard, right? Like when they're brand new and you're like, I'm not sure I can get both eyes open today. Oh my God. And then they're like middle school dance. And it's like, I'm not sure I want to open both eyes today. Maybe that's just my guess, since I'm not there yet, but
it's more the high school dance.
Oh no.
Oh, yeah.
Oh. So tell me, or tell everybody, not just me, but tell everybody, this book, I am curious about this. 5 strategies. So tell me about it, please, and thank you.
Yeah. So the 5 strategies are kind of like 5 umbrellas, right? They're umbrella topics. And the first one being efficiency, right? The idea is, how do you utilize your time and energy the most efficiently as you can in order to support what you're trying to achieve, right? Which ultimately is hopefully groundedness, calm, showing up as your best self for your family, for yourself, for your community, for your work. The second being habits, and how do you create that habitual infrastructure for yourself, right? And noticing what habits serve you and what don't, etc. The third is communication. How do you communicate effectively with those around you? Again, all in support of your calm, your groundedness, to get the support that you need as a busy parent. The fourth is community. It's about the people that you have around you, right? The ones that you choose and those who you don't, and those who you want to bring in closer, and those that maybe you want some more space from. And again, all in support of your calm. And the last one is self-care, taking care of you. And I'm not talking about, self-care Sunday, let's go get a manicure and a facial and a massage. No, I'm not talking about that surface level self-care. I'm talking about deep systemic self-care, things that you can do to start your day, to end your day, to anchor your energy, things that are more micro moments and intentional moments of refilling your cup that take care of the self of you.
Let's hang there for a second. So for you, all right, 2 questions, and I'll try and remember the second one. First of all, where did this come from? So where, like, you're like, okay, I've got a bunch of kids. They're all like going in different directions. I have this business. I do these things. I'm going to write a book. Where did that start? Where, why, how, all of that?
Yeah. So it all started when I was not okay, right? My hero's journey, so to speak. After having our 4th child, and for, I guess, a touch of backstory, 1 sentence, 1-liner, the 3 big kids are not my biological children. I came into their lives when they were very young. They were 3, 2, and 0. And I've been in their lives now for almost 13 years. So for full transparency, I did not birth 4 people. I raised 4 people and birthed 1, and took the 3 on when they were very little. So that is an important part of the story. And also just adding color to this person who's talking on this microphone right now for whoever's listening. So we moved from Los Angeles to San Francisco, got married. The 5 of us are up here. We add a 4th child to our family. And then we start our business 6 months later. That's when we start Be Courageous. And at that point, I had what I could call identity whiplash. I went from very single, doing my own thing in the heart of Los Angeles, surrounded by family and friends, taking care of me and my cat, right? And my preschool. But otherwise, very, not a lot of responsibility as an independent woman doing my own thing with no kids and no partner. Great, wonderful times.
Yeah.
To very short after that, right? Within just a couple of years living in San Francisco with no built-in community or support system, 4 kids, business, traveling husband. So he's very client facing and travels a lot internationally and all around the country. So I find myself in this state after we've started this business and have an infant and 3 kids in elementary school, and I'm having consistent panic attacks pretty much every day. It was a bit much. It was a bit much, to say the least. And there was one day that it hit me. It was kind of like what you said, Ashley. I have all the credentials that have set me up to be a mom, right? I could so use all of this experience and education, bring it into my home to make this run so much more smoother, and so that I could show up as a much better parent, as a better partner, as a business partner, and just to take care of me, because I was losing it every day. Yeah, it's anyone who's been relatively close to that in their existence understands it's a lot. Mm-hmm. It's a lot. So I made the intentional choice to bring change into this existence. I didn't want to just merely survive it anymore. I wanted to enjoy this life that I've chosen. I wanted to enjoy the days and my kids and this business. Me, I wanted to look in the mirror and be like, yeah, I like her. She's cool. But all of that had been gone. So anyway, make the intentional choice. Gonna bring goodness and joy back into my life. And that was what I did. And for about a year and a half, right, I was implementing different tools and strategies, efficiencies, habits, building up my community, getting better with my communication. And come those 18 months later, I'm a completely different person. I swear, unrecognizable, right? I look in the mirror and I'm like, yes, I know her. She is cool. She's got it together. Like the flame that had been on prior to in my former self that had been completely blown out had come back again. The pilot light got lit and the gas had got turned on. And all of a sudden I'm like, yes, this is how it should be. This is me owning my life, owning my shit, taking care of me and my family and my business and my relationship the way that I want to be doing this, and feeling good about all of it. So that's a really long interlude to how this book got started. But ultimately, I'm meeting new families for the first time at our youngest preschool. Right? For anyone who's gone to preschool for the first time and you're like, oh, people with similarly aged kids, let's all get to know each other and be on this journey together. Right. So we start sharing each other's stories, right? I'm telling them, okay, 4 kids, business from Los Angeles, traveling husband, blah, blah, blah. And they go, wait. So you just told us your story. You must have hired help. And I say, no. And they're like, wait, you must have, friends, family, something around, people who help you, or you're like, how are you keeping your shit together? How are you not how are you showing up every day with your hair brushed and clothing that looks like it's, somewhat of an outfit put together? And I say, well, you should have seen me a year and a half ago, because that was not the case. But now here are the things that I do that have kept me together with the few, additional supportive resources that we have in our home and with our family. And the response was overwhelming, actually, of people going, wait, how do you do all of this? Tell me your witchcraft. I want to understand, because they have more resources and fewer responsibilities, right? Fewer children and family around and communities they've grown up here, whatever it is. And I have less, right? Fewer resources and more responsibilities, yet I seem to have my shit together. And so after getting asked the question so much, I thought, you know what? Let me actually start writing down, just for myself, because I was curious, right? What are the things that I do that are helpful to me? What are the things that I think? What's my approach when I'm met with conflict with my kids, with my partner, in my business, in home life, right? What are the things that are helping me that I didn't do 18 months ago that were missing when I was having that hard time. So let me get that all down. And after about a year of just journaling, I had a lot of content, and that became the basis of the book.
I love that. I love that there's this idea of like, I don't love that what happens is that you basically have to feel like you've got dragged behind a truck in order to be like, okay, now I've hit the wall. Now this is all not fun anymore. This is not what I wanted. No, thank you. No, thank you. No, thank you. But like the fact that it's not, I just think the idea of the village is like, it's gone, right? Like you either you have a thing, or you have a system, you have whatever, or you don't. And I think that more often because of choices that like different ideals that we have about parenting, because of proximity, because of finances, because of time, because of for any number of reasons, this idea of the village is not, I don't think it's coming back. But the more people I talk to, like that have, so I talk to people that have 2 kids, right? Or 1 kid or 2 kids, and they're like, this is like a lot. You know what I mean? It's like they're like stuck in like the middle of the wave pool thing. But when I talk to people that have more than 2 kids, and especially people that have 4 kids, and I felt this like myself for sure, is like once you get to 4, you're like, no one's coming for me. Like no one is coming to save me, whether I want them to or not. No one is going to show up. Like that like idea of like someone's going to like break down the door and like clean your house and like do all that. You're like, okay, well, what do I have? I have all this experience. I have common sense to be able to like draw from one and put into the other. And I've like, the days are going, so why not make them better? You know, like why not just try something out and see what we can do and layer it in there? Because it's just this idea of like, it can be really hard and then it can be over, or it can be really hard. I mean, this is why I started my own company. I started it with 2 kids because I was like buried, totally buried, completely, utterly upside down. Like, let's take the skills that I have and turn this into something. And like, I love the idea that it is like, you know, you're upside down and sideways, but you still have the wherewithal to be like, don't want this. And I can get myself out of this. And it's not going to be easy, but like time is happening either way. And I also love that the idea of self-care is not a bubble bath that I could just drag out my soapbox and like chant about for hours and hours on end. It's just like meeting these basic needs is not self-care. That's not what we're talking about. So I love the idea that like the categories that you have, these 5 umbrellas are like they're layered in a way that makes sense, which I mean, you know this because this is the lived experience that you have, but they're also in a way that is not, I feel like as moms, when we're upside down and sideways, you get sold a solution that's not really a solution. It's more of that like bubble bath and like slippers and like all of that. And you're like, no, like I don't have a village. I'm screwed. I need help. Where are the tools? And so you actually have tools and strategies that you're putting out there to be like, no, this is for real because I help myself.
Yeah. And I grew up with a single mother. My parents divorced when I was 2, and I spent majority of time with my mom, and she was solo. And so I witnessed firsthand a woman, a mother, take care of, her family. She worked during the day. She actually went to school at night as well, getting her associate's degree at community college, and had a child, right? And so I think by being raised by a single mom, I add that to the resume of the things that helped support me being the mother that I am now, right? That I didn't necessarily, it wasn't ingrained in me that there has to be, someone to rely on, or someone that they are responsible for my well-being and my happiness and me, and in the nuclear unit, that there has to be this other party that I'm looking to support making sure that I'm taken care of. Right. And so I think with that in mind, or rather in the fabric of my own DNA and of my life and life experience, that when it came time for me to see like, this is not okay, I didn't look to see, husband, you're the one who's supposed to be making this okay for me. Why are you not taking care of me better? Don't you see that I'm losing my shit all the time? Right. And so I think what also made it, not even I think, I know, was that I did one thing at a time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Start with one thing and then build upon that. Right. And so just like the idea that the Grand Canyon wasn't built in a day, and slowly but surely it made, this huge crevice in the ground. Just like that, it was slowly but surely 1%, moving through that consistency, wearing down resistance, right? That persistence of let me try. I'm going to make it different. I'm going to do a 1% improvement, and slowly but surely profound change happened, right? And it started with the concept of, what's one thing every day that I found so incredibly stressful, right? That every single day, and it's not necessarily something related to my kids or my husband, right? It's just a thing, a responsibility, a task that every day I'm like, oh, really? That again? Right? And that was dinner. And I thought, let me just start with dinner. And that was literally the first thing that I did when I made this change was I implemented meal planning. I said, here's what we're going to do, family. It's Sunday right now. We're going to plan out our dinners for the entire week, right? What do we want to have? Grocery shop against that list. And then every day come 4:30, 5 o'clock, instead of being like, oh my gosh, now I have to be creative and I have to problem solve around what am I going to make for dinner tonight? It's like, oh, it's listed right there. And I have everything that I need. The cortisol that is saved from not having that stress every single day, that set me up for the rest of the night. It influenced with not having that stressor, right? That one thing.
I think especially like like what you were saying before about being single and being responsible for the cat. And when you're at preschool, you're hanging out with kids, but like there's an end, like people are coming to pick them up and stuff like that. Like, I think that globally, I don't know globally, but I think across the board, we underestimate how difficult it is to feed human beings day after day. Like if you're leaving the hospital with a baby, like you're like, all right, I'm gonna like keep them like clothed and they're gonna have a sleep schedule and they're gonna have all of this yada yada. Like the real kick in the teeth is the fact that you have to feed them 3 times a day plus snacks, and that God only knows what that looks like for teenagers, because my children right now could eat a small school bus worth of snacks. And it's just like people like, it is so much work to feed people, because you spend time trying to feed yourself so that you could feed people, or feeding people, or figuring out what people eat and all of that stuff. And then people don't eat the same thing. And then they eat it one day, but they don't eat another day. And it's just like, there is so much bandwidth that goes into just trying to keep people alive and fed. What are some of the other early changes that you made?
Some of the other early changes that I made had to do with my mental state, and recognizing that, that was also something that needed to change, right? I felt very resentful. I was in a very victim mentality, and with that anxiety every day, right? Of like, one, this is all on me. And if anything, I'm angry about that, right? I'm angry at the kid's biological mom that she's not here. And I'm angry at, my husband because he's traveling, but doing it even though it's for our work, right? Like my mind wasn't right. And so I shifted back to a practice that I used to have when I was younger. And by younger, I mean, like I've been doing this since I could write, and I used to journal. I have like loads of journals, and that was always my, like, a therapy for me. Yeah. So I returned to the journal, and that was something that really helped me to process, because I've always noticed when I was in a hard moment, in any phase of life that I was in, I would go to the journal and that would help me work through it. So I intentionally decided every night I'm going to journal. It was so cathartic to get it out, and that it made space, right? It made space for different thoughts to show up. It made space for gratitude. It made space for positivity, because I got out all the things, right? I got out all the anger. I got out all the things that were making me upset and resentful and angry. And so after I got that all out, right, I'm saying I'm angry and I'm mad and I'm having a fit on paper or out loud. Sure, great. I do that with my clients when they're so angry and overwhelmed. I'm like, get angry. Don't push it down. Get there. Yeah. Say all the things you want to say. And as soon as it's all out, it's like, oh. So I'm like, now what? They're like, well, I said everything I wanted to say about that. Great. Are you ready to talk about what's next? Yes, I am. Great. Same thing on paper, right? I got out all the anger, all the things. I'm like, this fucking sucked and that fucking sucked. And, the whole list of things that sucked, and go into, well, actually, but, my eldest did this thing today that was really cool. And then I saw the baby, crawl to a toy that really excited them, and he smiled, and, just these little things that then all of a sudden were starting to show up because I'd gotten rid of the gunk. Right. And that was a part of the processing. And that really supported my headspace and moving through the anger and the resentment, and slowly but surely that in gratitude, in processing, that I was able to start showing up differently because I was doing my work, right? I was doing my internal mental work.
Yeah. I like that you, like, I think it's important to point out, like, there's so many like strategies and techniques and things like that. Like, this is what I was saying about like solutions that people are handed. But like for somebody that doesn't journal or doesn't like love doing that, like if you just said to them, like, you need to journal and then all will be fine, that's not their self-care. So I really like that, like your strategy is true to you, and it's true to it's coming back to yourself. It's your essence. It is part of what makes you you. And that, like, knowing what that is and being in touch with what that is and being able to implement that strategy is I'm gonna guess why it works so well. Like if you read something or you were like, okay, I'm gonna do meditation, but like you don't like to meditate, it's like sitting there and you're like, why am I not better? Like, why does everything, like, this lady on Instagram meditates and look at her, like, her life is amazing. I mean, the pictures of her life are amazing. Let's be honest about Instagram for a second. But the idea of doing something that is true to you is what's going to be helpful. And it worked, right?
Yeah. And it was trial and error also, right? Especially after the first things came into play, right? It did become like trial and error of, does this thing work? Does that thing work? And it goes through phases and it ebbs and flows also, right? Like, I'll fall out of journaling for a while, and then I notice that I'm like, oh, I'm doing good. I don't need to intentionally journal every single day anymore. And then I'll not do it for months and then come back to it again. Or when I notice that I'm going to maybe some escaping, right? If I find that I'm teetering a little too much into escaping into Hulu and Netflix, oh, maybe I need to do journaling or meditating or something else that brings me joy or gets me in my head or out of my head. Right. And so, like, one of the things that I started to do also was meet people out in the world and intentionally build relationships with them. Right. It's like, oh, at the coffee shop, a place that I would go often. Right. There's a place called Long Way, and I love going there. It's a clothing shop in the front. It's a coffee shop in the back. And that's where I wrote actually a lot of this book. And I would go there and see some familiar faces and started having conversation with some of these people. And next thing I know, we're walking in, hey, how's it going, Kevin? Oh, Jenna, doing great. And the barista knows my order and knows my name. And I feel like I'm a part of something. And so I'm not so isolated and lonely in this parenting experience, which is inherently in this society incredibly isolating. And the more kids you have, it just feels like the more isolated you become. Yes. Right? As you know, Ashley, with your children as well. So it was, the intentionality of trying, like, let me see people that I can count on in this world, right? People and build relationships and not feel like I'm so alone in this existence. Even though, yes, I have a wonderful, amazing partner, love him so much. I have beautiful family, love them so much. But to outside of this home, outside of what's under this roof and these four walls, there's a big world out there, and connecting to that was another part, right, of the coming back to myself and finding my calm, was connection with what's out there, right? Yeah. Whether that was people and nature, but it was getting away from, if you can see, you cannot see my hands, but I am hovering them around me in a home-like manner. In my biodome of hand gesture, to get out and connect, right? That was a big one.
So where does the timeline of all of this happen in terms of the pandemic? Because I feel like you have, it seems like, I'm trying to do the math backwards, that like a lot of the introspection and a lot of the strategy and things like that came at a time when it was super pressured. And then as you move further along, that also sort of coincides with being able to, again, like, come out into the world because things are no longer crazy. I mean, that's,
for lack of a better word, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So when I was doing all of this work, right, those 18 months of really coming back to myself and intentionally choosing to do things differently in that trial and error phase, that was pre-pandemic. And in the reflections of that year of reflecting and journaling of, what did I do? Right. That was before the pandemic, and maybe even at the beginning parts of the pandemic as well, because I was working on the book proposal during lockdown. Yeah. So I guess I can be very grateful that I was not sheltering in place and losing my mind at the same time.
Yeah. Like you got ahead of the curve on that one. That was, you had the strategies in place when the world is like, all right, we're just going to take a pause for a long time, depending on where you were in the world and where you were in this country, that's all relative. But like having those strategies in place, because I think that it really, that whole period of time created this super pressure cooker, which comes with that feeling of, I've moved, I have 4 kids, you are very isolated and you are high stress. So like your experience, like if you had gone into that, if that had started at the beginning of the pandemic, just a no. That's a no just for you.
Just a huge no. I mean, I feel for those parents that became either I think, okay, let me back up a second. There are pros and cons to every phase of parenthood and identity shifting having happened either pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, or during pandemic, right? And there are definitely those of having your first child and being in lockdown, of being able to just be present with your firstborn is a gift. Or with any child, with any young being, any baby, to be able to be present with them and not have that pressure of right? Going through the fourth trimester and beyond in that first year and needing to navigate traveling to work and childcare and all of that. I mean, what a gift, right? That is a gift. Also, how incredibly challenging it is to do that with just you, and if you have a partner and your partner in a home with no one allowed to come and help you, right? While you're navigating it all. So anyway, whatever phase one is, there's pros and cons to all of it. And the ultimate thing that I can say is that I'm grateful for my experience happening the way that it did, because it couldn't have been anything else. If it was meant to be something else, it would have been. And that's how it is for everyone, right? If it was meant to be different, then it would be, but it's not. So the acceptance and loving of reality, grateful for the reality in which we have, and moving forward, because everything else is just suffering, right? By saying, oh, but you had it easier than me because it was pre-pandemic, or it was during pandemic, whatever it was, right? The grass is always greener. But as soon as we can accept and love our own realities, then we can move forward and say, this is how it is, and have the conviction in that, and be able to stand on our 2 feet on solid ground and be like, that's how it is. That's how it was for me. That's my journey, how it was meant to be. Let's go. Let's do this.
Yeah, it's so funny because my oldest was 7, and I literally came home from the hospital the week before the world shut down with my 4th. And so like I joked, I was like, oh, the whole world is on maternity leave with me. And then I was like, this is quite extended. This is quite a process. But I love the idea that so you have the strategy, you are working on bringing this information out into the world, and you are doing something to help others, because it is, it's that idea of like, okay, I did this. These are all the things that are great and they're wonderful. But instead of just like carrying on your merry way, you say, okay, no, I'm going to help other people not feel like this. And I mean, that is being a human-centric individual and being somebody who is a coach, and in terms of like performance and having all of the experience that you have, like that all tracks, right? It all makes sense. But the idea of like, I feel like the buy-in for people on strategies, and having to have strategies, and having to like think about things differently. I feel like the pandemic is like the best example of really just like having your nose hair ripped out and being like, oh my God, what just happened? Like, I think that we would all continue to just try and kick the ball down the road for as long as we could, if we did not all have this abrupt world's crashing down. Holy shit, what do we do now? So, I think like you're saying, like if things are happening for a reason, like you're able to now test in real time, like in the most extreme amount of pressure, in the most extreme amount of like, closed, everything is closed, everything like resources and all of that is closed. Does what I'm doing make sense? Does it carry on? Do these strategies hold? So that that, like, speaking of standing on your own 2 feet, you can say, this is what I did to unscrew everything, and this is how I moved through this period of time, to add to the like authenticity of the experience and of the process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what was interesting is during the pandemic as well, like I had a lot of tools, but I also forgot a lot of the tools.
Yeah.
Right. Like there's things that you start doing, right? And I have so many things that I know that brought me out of that, that place, that 18 months before the place, what should we call that place? The newly evolved Jenna place. I need to like put that in era's terms, right? Like this was my pre-Renaissance. And this is like my Neanderthal days, and how, there were things that worked and they become implemented, and they're just like a part of the routine and the structure of things. And then with any big shift, right? Like we're just trying to survive this new thing. We're trying to adapt to this new environment we find ourselves in, a new child or a divorce or some other crises, right? Something happens with a child of yours or a family member or with yourself, and you get thrown off of that standing on your own 2 feet, feeling grounded and with conviction again. Right. Mm-hmm. And so that happened, I mean, during the pandemic, and then post-pandemic, I did have a child that went through a really tough time. We had a big health crisis that was very scary. And, I got thrown off kilter, and thankfully that was the time of my book where it was time to edit. So I was literally going with a fine-tooth comb through the manuscript, through this book, and being reminded of how to take care of me again, because I had been all consumed back into what was going on with my child. And so by going through all of it again, I was like, oh yeah, I have all the tools. Let me use them again. Right. Yeah. Just like when I had that aha moment of the, pre-Renaissance Jenna era of, wait, I have all the tools, the psychology degree, the organizational management degree, the preschool experience and the HR experience. I have everything that I need. And then during the pandemic, things got really hard again. Sugarcoat it. I mean, I ended up almost breaking down a door because, oh my gosh, I'm putting myself back there. I haven't thought about this memory in a while. It was the 3 big kids all had homework, right? They were 2 in middle school, 1 in elementary school. The 2 bigs had finished their homework. The 3rd one hadn't yet. They're like at home homework, right? The 3rd one had asked earlier in the day if we could play a board game all together as a family. And the bigs had finished the 2 eldest finished, and they started the board game without the 3rd. And I was so angry. I was like, dude, he was the one that asked for this. Wait for him. Come on, wait for him, right? I'm definitely really upset with them about this. And then I go to my room to take a breath, to be alone, to not, lose my shit on them. And the youngest, the 4th, who this had become a trend at this point, had locked my bedroom door from the inside, so I couldn't get in.
Awesome.
And yeah, I lost it. I completely lost it and had to remind myself, as I'm literally kicking and punching this door, I'm reminding myself we're in a pandemic. We're probably not going to be able to get this repaired until who knows how long. So do not actually break the door. You need to have this door. So I stopped trying to break it. And thankfully, because he had been doing this so much recently, I'd had a little toothpick above the door frame, and then, just put it in, poke it, and then let myself in. But then in that moment, after going in the room, realizing I'm just, again, in a little room and I have a lot of feelings, big emotions, and I'm angry. So I go in the room and think, I actually don't want to be in here. I can't be inside. And I put on my shoes and I just left and didn't come back for 2 hours. Just like, bye.
Yeah.
And I was just done. And this was about a month into the pandemic. And I was really, I felt proud. I'm like, it took me 4 weeks of shelter in place to lose my shit. But what was really beautiful, the beauty that came out of that was, so I went outside, I left for 2 hours, but what I did is I just walked. I just went walking for those 2 hours outside. It was like 1 in the afternoon, maybe. So it was a beautiful day, right? It's spring, it's April. It's beautiful outside. And having done that, I came back to the realization that being outside, being in nature, being alone, having these moments are things that fill me up. And if I were to do even just 15 minutes of this every day, I would be such a happier person, a better parent, better partner, right? Because all I would need to do is just go outside 15 minutes. If I could get 2 hours, right? I'm not going to storm out of the house every day, but maybe that could be, a prophylactic. If I go outside every day for 10, 15, 30 minutes, whatever the amount of time is, then that could be a part of my self-care during this really challenging time. And that was one of my reminders to self: connection, nature. We are nature beings, right? We have to get outside. We have to get outside.
Yeah.
Wear a mask, do whatever you need to do, get outside.
Yeah. It's that I love the idea. Well, I don't love the idea, but I could just imagine, like, when you've like lost your marbles and all of a sudden everyone like figures it out. You're just like, I'm all done. I'm all done times a lot. And then you just leave and there's just silence, and then silence when you come back. And it's like, all right, everything is fine now. Here's what's going on. That's all. That's a whole other layer of things, right? Like, here's what's going on with me. This is like yada yada, like all of the conversation that happens around it. But again, you come back to like listening to what you actually need, because I think that most people, and especially in the pandemic, would have just gone into the room and bounced around like a, I don't know, like a squash ball for a while, or a racquetball, and would have been nothing would have been resolved or helped or brought back down. So I love that idea of like, it's so true, right? You're like, I'm going to lose my mind. However, I cannot get this door fixed. I cannot do the thing. Like, I don't want the consequences. Like, how to know that you're a full-fledged adult, right? You're like losing my mind. At the same time, I'm having a conversation with myself of like, the consequences of your actions are A, expensive, and B, annoying. So you need to stop before you get to the end of this road. And you're just like, okay, now I will go for a walk. Like, it's just you're all grown up, and it's like the worst, right? You're just like, I want to do that. Like, I want to break the door. I want to lay on the floor and be like, like, I don't know how many times I've said to one of my kids, like, do you know how good it would feel to just lay on the floor of the grocery store and lose your mind? Someone would take me to a hospital, but like your kid's losing it in Target, and you're just like, man, I'm so jealous. Like,
I'm so jealous. So jealous. Good. It's so nice. So there's actually an adult form of, I want to say, tantrum that's been coined by a woman, and I'm going to butcher her last name, but her moniker is Mama Gina. Have you heard of her?
I have not.
Oh, okay. So she wrote a book. She's written multiple books, but the one that's most notable, the one that really made impact for me, that was a part of my coming back to myself, is called Pussy, a Reclamation. And it really just reconnected me to the things that light me up, right? Mm-hmm. And she calls it turn on, right? She relates everything back to the pussy, right? And it's like your GPS, where are you going? It's the great pussy in the sky is telling you and showing you the way. The alliterations are phenomenal. Anyway, but one of the practices that she talks about in her book, and I had the opportunity to actually be with her in life form pre-pandemic, is the concept of swamping, where you actually have a time, it's carved out, and you get shit to break, or pillows to punch, or a safe place for you to let it all go. Let it all go. Wear things you don't care if you tear off your body. Wear a trash bag if you feel like trash, right? And just put on some music that you can rage to, and let it out. Just let it all out and cry and scream, and have that be in a container, right? That you have this container of space to have this experience and have it be, whether witnessed by someone else so they can see and feel you, and you can feel heard and seen, right? In that space, and it's safe, right? It's physically safe, and no one's going to call the cops and you can say there's this crazy lady, right? Granted, I did get the cops called on me once before, when I did swamping with a group of ladies in Santa Cruz. We got the call. We got the cops called on us. They thought that we put a note up that just said, we're just working through generational rage and trauma. Don't worry, everything's fine. But it is the most phenomenal feeling in the world to create that container and let it out and have that emotional outburst and target feeling, that feeling that we're so jealous of watching a toddler or a child just let it all out and not give a shit.
Mm-hmm.
And to do that for ourselves, it is the most magnificent thing.
Oh my gosh. Well, I am so excited to connect with you, and I'm so excited to have you on. And I love the authentic help without the whitewashing of what the experience is that leads to help. I think that's awesome. I think it's just really, it's so timely, having, you don't time these things, but it is timely given what we're all kind of working through and cruising through over the last couple of years. So I would love for you to tell everybody where they can find you, where they can buy your book, where they can, all of the things, how to find Jenna.
How to find Jenna. So a quick Google search will do that for you, Jenna Hermans. You can also find me at bcrgs.com. That's Be Courageous without any vowels, and jennahermans.com. So there's the bit for business, because not only am I the queen of calm, and there's jennahermans.com with all the calm things, there's also courage, which is a big part of my life, hence Be Courageous being my business. So Be Courageous for courage, jennahermans.com for calm, at Jenna Z Hermans for Instagram. I'm also on LinkedIn, Jenna Hermans. And then the book you can find anywhere books are sold. Support local, go to your local bookstore. If they don't have it in stock currently, you can ask them to get it for you. They'll have it, and let you know, I'm sure, when it's arrived. Otherwise, Amazon, Target, Barnes and Noble, my site, everywhere.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and thank you for sharing all of these, I think so needed, helpful, non-condescending tools and strategies that people can use, and ideas to put out in the world that aren't just run a bubble bath and you'll feel fine. That's the generation that stuck their head in the oven. So let's just not follow suit there on that one.
Amen to that.
Yeah. So on that note, thank you. And I will put up in the show notes all of the contact info as well, so that you, anyone that wants to reach out can reach out. So thank you again for coming here.
Thank you so much for having me, Ashley. It was such a pleasure and an honor to be here.